بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, we will continue along with the ta'zeem al-ilm, or making ilm, knowledge, great and dear in your heart. And last week we covered the first premise of reaching this level of, making knowledge, respecting knowledge and making it great. And that was making the container or the vessel pure for it. And we said that in order to receive knowledge, the vessel in which it's received, which is the heart, must be purified and cleansed. Right? And we said by the amount that the heart is cleansed is the amount of knowledge that it can take in. And just like the example was, if you have a glass full of dirty water, it can't accept, anything else, right? Or anything that comes in it becomes corrupted or dirty as well. In order to get pure water in it, you clean out that glass well, so the pure water can come into it. And that's like with knowledge, to have pure knowledge or great knowledge or effective knowledge, it's the heart needs to be cleansed so it can attain it. And we've seen how those who have pure hearts reach high levels in the deen. And now he goes to the second premise of attaining knowledge or gaining the benefit or making it great in your heart, and that is having the purity of intention. إخلاص النية. So he says, إن إخلاص الأعمال أساس قبولها وصدم وصولها. قال الله تعالى وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين. So the premise or the foundation of accepting any action is according to the purification of the niyyah, the intention. Right? And Allah, He says in Surah Al-Bayyinah, and they were not ordered except that they should worship Allah sincerely. Right? Mukhlisin, ikhlas. Ikhlas is having a pure intention for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وفي صحيحين عن عمر رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الأعمال بالنية ولكل امرئ ما نوى. The actions are by intention, and every person shall have what he has intended. The basis of all actions are intention. We've said previously in other lessons, for any action to be accepted, you need two requirements. What are they? No. And the first one? Intention. So the purity or pure intention and the agreement with the Sharia or the Quran and the Sunnah for any action to be accepted. Right? If you have good intention but you're not following the legislation, the action won't be accepted. كل بدعة ضلالة, right? ومن أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. Every innovation is a misguidance, and the Prophet said that whoever invents something in this affair of ours, it will be rejected. So if they're not complying to the Sharia, the action is rejected. And if they don't have, if it's in accordance to the Sharia, but the action does not have the proper intention, it's also rejected. Because why?
Because
action is by intention. So if you have the action, you're doing it correctly, but you don't have a good niyyah, what happens? Why is that? What is that like? Why won't it be accepted?
It's not for Allah's sake.
It's not for Allah's sake, so it becomes shirk or hypocrisy. Right? You're doing it for other than the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah does not need any partner. He goes on, he says, وَمَا سَبَقَ مَنْ سَبَقَ وَلَا وَصَلَ مَنْ وَصَلَ مِنَ السَّلَفِ الصَّالِحِينَ إِلَّا بِالْإِخْلَاصِ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. He says that none of the previous generations have attained or reached or arrived at what they arrived at except by their sincerity of intention. Right? We mentioned some of the stories of Imam Bukhari, Imam al-Nawawi, and other great scholars in the past, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has lifted them up high in levels and stature, right? Because their sincerity, as we assume. Right? The more sincere the sincerity they have, the more barakah and blessings they've had. They might have lived short lives, but they did so much good, and we still to this day read their books and benefit from their knowledge. قال أبو بكر الموردي رحمه الله تعالى سمعت رجلا يقول لأبي عبد الله يعني أحمد بن حنبل وذكر له الصدق والإخلاص فقال أبو عبد الله بهذا ارتفع القوم. And it was mentioned by Abu Bakr al-Marudi that he heard a man mention to Abu Abdullah, who was Imam Ahmed, that's his kunya, that Imam Ahmed said that he heard ikhlas and sidq, so intention and truthfulness. And he said, with these two things, the nations have been lifted high. Right? When we look at the generation of the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, and we see in such a short span of time how much they achieved because of their ikhlas and their sidq. Right? They didn't care about the dunya, they cared about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah gave them the dunya and the akhirah. And to this day, the ummah hasn't achieved what they achieved in those first generations in terms of spreading Islam so quickly, right? Against the greatest powers in the world at the time. These small Arabian, kind of Bedouin people overtook Rome and Persia, and then eventually up to Spain and China, because they had ikhlas. They were doing their deeds for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you read in the seerah some of the great miracles that occurred from the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them. And this is the goal of all Muslims, that he should purify his intention. وَإِنَّمَا يَنَالُ الْمَرْءُ الْعِلْمَ عَلَى قَدْرِ إِخْلَاصِهِ. As we said last week, the person achieves knowledge by the purity of his heart. The Imam is also saying in this chapter, you achieve it by the purity of your intention. So the more pure your intention is, the more knowledge you are able to take in and comprehend. وَالْإِخْلَاصُ فِي الْعِلْمِ يَقُومُ عَلَى أَرْبَعَةِ أُصُولٍ بِهَا تَتَحَقَّقُ نِيَّةُ الْعِلْمِ لِلْمُتَعَلِّمِ إِذَا قَصَدَهَا. So he said, الْإِخْلَاصُ فِي الْعِلْمِ, the purity or sincerity in seeking knowledge, is achieved upon four major foundations, right? And you establish your niyyah, or the correct niyyah, with establishing these four. For those who are seeking knowledge, the student. الأول رفع الجهل عن نفسه بتعريفها ما عليها من العبوديات وإيقافها على مقاصد الأمر والنهي. That the first thing that you should do in trying to achieve the purity of intention is to have the intention of lifting ignorance from upon yourself. Like you have a niyyah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take away your ignorance. بتعريفها ما عليها من العبوديات وإيقافها على مقاصد الأمر والنهي. By knowing that which is obligatory upon you in the worship, right? So your intention in seeking knowledge is to lift the ignorance upon yourself so you can worship Allah correctly. To know what's obligatory upon you, how to offer salah, how to make zakat, to make hajj. All these are requirements of our deen. Right? So when your first intention is to lift that ignorance from you so you can worship Allah correctly. Also to stop it yourself upon the haram. Like you know it's halal and haram, so you can do those things that are obligatory upon you, and you know it's haram, so you can stay away from it. That's the first part. The second part, رفع الجهل عن الخلق بتعليمهم وإرشادهم لما فيه صلاح دنياهم وآخرتهم. The second part of establishing the correct intention is to intend lifting the ignorance upon the creation by teaching them and guiding them and pointing to that which will benefit them in their dunya and in their akhirah. The third, إحياء العلم وحفظه من الضياع. That you revive knowledge and protect it from being lost. And the fourth, العمل بالعلم, acting upon the knowledge. ولقد كان السلف رحمهم الله تعالى يخافون فوات الإخلاص في طلبهم العلم فيتورعون عن أدائه لا أنهم لم يحققوه في قلوبهم. He said that the Salaf rahimahullah ta'ala, they were so keen and fearful of losing their ikhlas in their action and then their seeking of knowledge. So they would be very keen and very careful on how they sought knowledge and how they acted upon the knowledge. They were constant in purifying their attention. سئل الإمام أحمد رحمه الله تعالى هل طلبت العلم لله. Imam Ahmad was asked, did you seek knowledge for the sake of Allah? فقال لله عزيز ولكنه شيء حبب إلي فطلبته. He said, for the sake of Allah is something very, very great. However, it's something that became beloved to me, so I sought it. Right? He didn't want to say that he was mukhlis, only for the sake of Allah, because it's such a high level. And they were very keen not to commit shirk or have riya or showing off. وينبغي لقاصد السلامة ومن ضيع الإخلاص فآته علم كثير وخير وفير. Whoever loses ikhlas will lose much knowledge and much good. So the more ikhlas you have in your actions, the more you will gain from it. And the more you lose ikhlas, like your ikhlas goes away, the more you will lose from it. وينبغي لقاصد السلامة أن يتفقد هذا الأصل وهو الإخلاص في أموره كلها دقيقها وجليلها سرها وعنانيها. And it's befitting for the seeker, making the student of knowledge, that he strives to have ikhlas in all his affairs, in the great ones and the small ones, in the secret ones and the open ones. So when you're seeking knowledge in public, when you're reading on your own, always renew your intention that you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these four things that we mentioned: to lift the ignorance from yourself, to lift the ignorance from the people and the creation, to save knowledge from being lost, and to act upon that knowledge. Like Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he made the chapter in the Sahihihi, al-ilmu qabl al-qawli wal-amal, that knowledge precedes speech and action. Right? You can't, we said in the very beginning of this class in the introduction, that you can't claim to be a Muslim or say that shahada and be totally ignorant of all it entails and be correct. That's called shahadat az-zur. That's false testimony. Right? Al-ilm wal-yaqeen wal-qubul, we said that having knowledge is from the requirements of the shahada to be correct. So he's saying, it's befitting for a student to always renew your intention in the big and the large and the small and the great affairs. قال سفيان الثوري رحمه الله تعالى: ما عالجت شيئا أشد علي من نيتي لأنها تتقلب علي. Sufyan al-Thawri, one of the great imams of hadith and fiqh, he said that I did not try to cure something harder upon myself than my niyyah. Because sometimes we take it for granted because we don't really focus on our niyyah as much. We think how can this great imam or this scholar or like Imam Ahmad, Imam Sufyan al-Thawri, Imam Malik, how they have problems with their niyyah and we don't have. No, because they were so pure or keen on making their intentions pure. That's why they say these type of statements. We think, mashallah, we do an act and we're going to Jannah ala tul, it's accepted. Allah says, إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah only accepts from those who have taqwa. Right? So you have to be keener upon your action being accepted, which means you have to be keener upon your niyyah, your intention, always renewing it. That's the difference between the Khalaf and the Salaf. بل قال سليمان الهاشمي رحمه الله تعالى: ربما أحدث بحديث واحد ولي نية فإذا أتيت على بعضه تغيرت نيتي فإذا الحديث الواحد يحتاج إلى نيات. He said that I might narrate a hadith with an intention, and as I'm narrating the hadith, the intention changes, so I renew my intention, I have another intention. So with one hadith might be multitudes of intentions, right? To demonstrate to us that striving to perfect the intention always continuously, to make it sure for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the explanation, the Shaykh, he goes on, so that's the summary of the text that we went through just now. Briefly, he explains that, like we said, the niyyah is the asl of al-a'mal. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. All actions are by intention. So you have to have the purity of intention for any act that you do. And the niyyah can be derived in terms of ajr, reward. If you intend to do a good, you have an ajr. And if you do the good, you have the ajr, with the proper niyyah, and up to 700 times. If you intend to do a good deed, but you don't do it, what happens?
You get the reward.
Reward.
Okay,
Yeah.
say it again. What was the
If
question?
you intend to do a good deed,
Oh, okay.
but you don't do it, like
One reward.
say,
You get one
You get
ajr.
one.
you get rewarded. Yeah,
Right.
it might be even more, but you get rewarded
Oh,
because
okay.
your niyyah
Your
was to do
niyyah.
that good deed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mercy upon us.
Okay.
If you have intention to do a bad deed, but you didn't do it, what happens?
0.
Okay. 0. Everybody agrees?
Yeah.
No disagreement?
Great.
I think you still get a reward, right?
If you intend to do a bad deed, but you don't do it,
Oh yeah, yeah.
You
get
stop
a reward.
yourself.
you stop yourself.
You get a
So the fear of
reward
Allah, and you get the
You
reward.
get rewarded
Yeah.
for not doing it.
for not doing it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's every agreement. You get rewarded if you have intent to do a bad deed, but you don't do it. You get rewarded for it. Is that everybody in agreement?
I think
Can you elaborate?
nothing happens.
It's like, yeah.
So you get
It,
rewarded
the watch
because not
is
doing
itself.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there
you get a reward.
is,
You get a reward.
Then you will not get.
it's tafsil. So it depends on the intention. For example, you are going to do, may Allah protect us from a bad deed. Like say you're going to rob a bank, and the person who is going to rob the bank sees a police officer, so he gets scared and he comes back. In this case, this person might still get the punishment actually because his intention was to do the sin,
Right.
right? And the proof for that is what?
That's what Yusuf said. He afraid.
Huh?
He's afraid not
There's a proof from the Sunnah that if you intend to do something bad, even though you didn't do it, you can get punished for it.
The two people that killed.
Yes. Al-Qatu wal-Maqtuli fi an-nar. The killer and the one who was killed are in the hellfire. So the Sahaba, they asked him, "O Prophet of Allah, we know why the killer is in the hellfire, but why is the one that's killed in the hellfire?" He said, "Kana harisa ala qatli akhi." He was keen on killing his brother. So his intention was, if he was able to, he would kill him too. But he didn't get a chance to. That's right. So he gets punished for it, for that reason. Now, situation B, you have intention to do a haram act, and you're about to do it, you're going forward to do it, and then you realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. You say, "Inni akhaf Allah," like I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or "Astaghfirullah, may Allah forgive me," and you stop that. In that case, you will get rewarded for it. Right? Because your intention, you left the bad deed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that niyyah is very important, how it affects the actions. Also, the niyyah can make a small deed great, and a great deed small. We mentioned that the 3 people that apparently are the greatest deeds that you can do in terms of the martyr, the one who spends in the cause of Allah, so apparently, and what's the third one? Remind me.
The sheikh.
What do we do? Yeah.
Person of
The one seeking knowledge, or the scholars, apparently. All 3 of them, these are 3 of the best deeds that anybody can do. However, they were the 3 that will first be thrown into hellfire, because they did it for the sake of other than Allah. They did it for the sake of glory or for people's praise. Right? And then we mentioned, as we mentioned last week, I think, or the week before, the baghiya, the prostitute, she just with the small act of, giving drink to the thirsty dog, she entered into paradise with that. Right? And we see some of the Sahaba, they didn't do much of the good deeds, but they had good intentions, so they were rewarded with Jannah. One of the companions, he was given the Prophet said that you want to see somebody from the people of Jannah, look at this person. And so Abdullah ibn Umar, went and followed this person, tried to see what's going on, like how does he get Jannah. And then he went and stayed with him. He said, "Can I be a guest with you in your house?" And he stayed as a guest in his house. So he said, "I didn't see him do extra from salat or fasting or anything special." And it's just like, I'm wondering what happened. Why did he have the guarantee of Jannah? So he went to him and asked, "I really came here for this reason, that I'm trying to find out. The Prophet said such and such about you. What do you do that's special?" And he said, "I don't do much except what you have seen. However, there's one thing, I don't go to sleep at night except that I make sure there's nothing in my heart against any Muslim." Right? And for that he has Jannah. So this is like the importance of having a pure niyyah, even though the action might not be that great, apparently, but the niyyah makes it so much greater. And the Imam says that in order to make your niyyah pure for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you must clear it from the worship of anything other than Allah. So like when you're doing an action, you don't want the praise of the people, you don't care about the praise of the people, you're not doing it to achieve the pleasure of the people, you're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Even if you try to make somebody happy or do something nice for another person, your niyyah originally is to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pleased, first and foremost. Right? And this is how you purify your niyyah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you were listening to something, and the person just, she was talking about, this thing, but then she said that she was in a room with her son, who's an adult. And somebody came who did not know that that was her son. So they were in a room in an isolated part of the building. And when the person came, they asked for something, they left. And she felt to tell her son, go run after that person and tell them that you're my son.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like, I'm thinking, what do I care when I know that Allah knows,
Yeah.
I know that's my son, and there's nothing. Why do I have to, just make sure that that person doesn't think this about me,
Well, that's to help your brother and sister not fall into the haram for themselves,
Okay.
to have bad thoughts about you or that person. So, and this is an example from the Sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ, who was the best of creation. He was walking in the street with Safiya, and some of his companions saw him, obviously, and he actually went back to them and said, "Innaha Safiya, verily she is Safiya, my wife." And they said, of course, we would never even doubt you, O Prophet of Allah. Why would-" He said, "La, inna shaitan yajri fi bani Adam," or yajri al-dam. Like the shaitan, once goes to you, like the blood goes through your veins. So the shaitan will come and whisper to people. So to cut that out, it's good sometimes to clarify stuff. This is my sister, this is my family, this is a business meeting.
But what's wrong if I don't do it?
Because you might leave the door open for shaitan to come and say, "Oh, the sisters, I found a sister with a man in the downstairs by themselves."
But that's their problem, it's not mine.
Yeah, but why would you want them to fall into haram? Yeah. So I'm saying her intention,
But isn't it that person supposed to also say, okay, could have been her husband, could have been her brother? Why do they right away start talking so?
Yeah, of course it is, but why would you want to help shaitan against that person? You know what I'm saying? That's the whole point.
It's that person who's looking for shaitan. I didn't help shaitan.
No, the person, always the shaitan is trying to look for the weakness of a person. Some people aren't as pure-hearted or high iman as others. So you always look for the general population as opposed to the individuals. Not everybody has the iman of Abu Bakr. So what she did was fine, and it's not like she's not trying to show off. She's just trying to
No, I
make it
understand.
clear.
Yeah.
Well, Rasulullah say already tell the people this is my
Is
wife.
it mustahab to do something
You
like
have
that?
to
What's that?
Is it recommended to do something like this because of the sunnah?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Like for the sunnah, just to clarify. Yeah.
It's also saying من وضع نفسه موضع شبهة ثم اتهم فلا أجر له. So if someone puts themselves in a situation where he can bring shubha to himself, like might think he's doing something haram. Like the common example they give is like someone drinking from like a Perrier water in public, and it might look like he's drinking alcohol. He's not doing anything haram,
Right.
but he's putting himself in a position where someone else can think, oh, this guy's
You
doing.
might be doubtful.
Yeah. So it's better to always like
Clarify
clarify
the
your
doubts.
position.
Yeah.
That's it.
Also for the purifying of the attention, the Imam is saying that you find the most sincere people, the most worried about having riya, or showing off, or having false intention. Like the more sincere somebody is, the more keen and scared they are about their intention. Whereas you find like the hypocrites or those who don't have high iman, they don't really care all about their intention. They think that they're going to Jannah with whatever. But they said that the Imma and like the more pious of the people, they accuse themselves, they accuse their attention, right? So they're always striving to get to higher levels. And some of the sayings they said, I think was reported upon Imam al-Shafi'i, لا يعرف الرياء إلا المخلص, that no one really knows the riya or showing off except the truly sincere person, right? Because the sincere person, he might fall into that and accuse himself right away and understand it. Whereas the insincere person doesn't really care. One of his main points is actually to get attention, to get show, to get the praise of the people, right? So he's not really purifying his intention like he should be. And that's the gift of the Salihin.
Isn't it a good way, to remember your sins or your imperfections? Another way, if someone's complimenting you or, talking about you in a high way to kind of humble yourself in.
Yeah, that's a way for not letting yourself be overtaken by pride or showing off to others. It's to remember your faults, And it's not good to praise people in general to their faces. Because like the Prophet said, you want to break the back of your brother. And if you do, always say, وَلَا يُزَكَّى اللَّهِ أَحَدٍ. I don't purify upon Allah anyone. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows what's in their hearts. After the Prophet ﷺ knows that He has mentioned in terms of who are in paradise, then we can't go on and like really be certain for 100% that anybody else is going. There's signs and there's, we hope for it and we assume the best of the people, but it's always to turn the affair to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ هُوَ أَعْلَمُ مَنِ اتَّقَى. Do not, brag about yourself being pure. Allah, He knows who is the pure. Right? That's in the Quran. And he's, reviewing the points of the 4 points the Imam, he put it into a poem form. نِيَةٌ لِلْعِلْمِ رَفْقُ الْجَهْلِ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فِي غَيْرِهِ مِنَ النَّسَمِ وَالثَّالِثُ تَحْسِينٌ لِلْعُلُومِ مِنْ ضِيَاعِهَا وَعَمْلُ بِهِ زُكٍ. So he said that نِيَة لِلْعِلْمِ, to have the proper niyyah and attention, like we said, is to 1, remove the ignorance from yourself, general ignorance from yourself. عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فَغَيْرِهِ, and then upon the other people, right? And then nasam is like the population of the people. وَالثَّالِثُ تَحْسِينُ لِلْعِلْمِ مِنْ, like having, protecting the knowledge from being lost, right? From the signs of the Day of Judgment is the dissipation of ilm, of knowledge, and the going away of the ulama. So from ihya as-sunnah, trying to revive the sunnah and protect the knowledge, is studying it, seeking it, and spreading it, to prevent that as much as possible. Because the more the ignorance spreads amongst the ummah and society, the more that sinfulness and destruction will come upon the people. Right? So it's like one of your niyas is to actually protect the ummah of Islam from this destruction by reviving knowledge and spreading knowledge. And fourthly, amalu bihi zukin, acting upon it is like a form of zakat. Right? The more you act upon the knowledge, it's like zakatul ilmi and amalu bihi. That the purification of, or the, how the money has zakat upon it, knowledge has zakat upon it as well. And the zakat of the knowledge is to act upon it, or to teach it to others, or both, the most beneficial. That's why you find some of the scholars of the past, even if it was like Imam Ahmed, he went to get hijama, which is like the cupping. And the cupper, the person that does the hijama, said, it's like on me basically, like you don't have to pay me. He said, no, I read the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, that he went to the hijama, al-hajim, and he paid him 1 dinar. So I want to do this, fulfilling the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. That's how keen they were to literally follow the hadith of the Prophet. And he said the keenness of the ulama and the salaf upon renewing the niyyah and checking the niyyah, the intention, making sure that you're sincere, because a niyyah yataqallab, it changed. We said, remember, the qalb, the heart is from yataqallab, or yataqallab, or qallaba yuqallib, the turning, the heart turns, it's changing all the time. So your niyyah has to be pure, that you have to check yourself before your niyyah changes. Like you might have started out with the greatest intention that I'm seeking knowledge to lift the ignorance upon myself, to teach others, to protect the knowledge, to act upon this knowledge. But then you start getting some knowledge and you're like, I want these people to hear my speech. I want these people to see that I'm a knowledgeable person, right? Or I want to argue and debate somebody to show that I'm more knowledgeable than you. Right? So you have to check yourself and make sure this hadith, this knowledge that you've sought was for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how the niyyah changes, he says there are several ways that it can change. It can change, first of all, from the action that you're doing to some other action, right? So you could start out, for example, for seeking knowledge for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it changes to seeking knowledge to attain, a position, like to become a judge or to become a teacher or something like that. Right? So then in that case you have to go back to making sure that it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you can have that as a second knowledge or a secondary knowledge in terms of like maybe you can become a teacher, right? Or maybe you can get a job or a position from this knowledge. But your first knowledge, you want to change it, make sure that the first and foremost is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something they call like changing knowledge from something preferred to something mubah, right? It also can change in terms of something preferred to something haram. How is that?
Yeah.
Riyah. or changing for the sake of, from the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the sake of the people, to get praised by the people. And we said that's how one of the scholars, or some of the category of scholars, are the first to get thrown into the hellfire, because they sought knowledge just for the praise of the people, not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, there'll be the man in the hellfire, he's dragging his intestines around, and they will say like, didn't you used to teach us? And he said, yeah, but I used to do that which showing off, and then like I used to do the things that I told you not to do, and not do the things that I told you to do. Right?
That's my sake, not
Yeah.
my sake.
So that's very. So the correction, if you have either changing it to mubah or changing it to something mufsid, or it just corrupts the knowledge, you have to change it again. Just renew it to the good thing, right? And the third point is remaining upon knowledge, or remaining upon intention. Sorry. So the first one, intention can change from something permissible to something mubah. Secondly, it can change from something permissible to something haram. And thirdly, the point is to remain upon your niyyah throughout the ibadah. Right? So in salat, for example, you make the niyyah to pray dhuhr, right? For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like in salam, somebody comes along and starts, I don't know, you want to show off and make the salat longer for that person. So you have to change your niyyah back to, this is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't care who's watching.
Do you start your salah over in that situation?
You don't have to start over. You can just renew the
Yeah,
intention within the salah.
Just a small interjection. Some of the scholars say that from the shaitan's tactics is if you're praying, say, maghrib in front of people, and shaitan will come up to you and say, oh, you're perfecting your salah in order to please the people. So the ulama would say that you should, instead of listening to shaitan, you should lengthen the prayer even more, just to tell the shaitan, be quiet, I'm not listening to you. So from his tricks to make you speed up or lessen your reading, he tell you, oh, you're not doing it for the sake of Allah, you're doing it for the people. So to shut up the shaitan, you should increase the length of your salah.
Yeah, that's another point. So the shaitan, he might use his trick to try to get you from the other direction as well. So why, just say prayer in general. Why go to the masjid and show off that you're praying in jama'ah? Your niyyah is not pure, so why don't you stay home and pray, for example? In that case, you should disobey that, because the correct way to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to go to the masjid and pray in jama'ah, for example, for the men. Right? So you go against the shaitan. Or, for example, you want to donate sadaqah or zakat. Shaitan comes, oh, you don't want to, you're just doing it for the sake of people, you shouldn't even do it, why bother doing it, just keep your money. No, in that case you go for it and give zakat, but make your niyyah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, the tricks of the shaitan are many, the Muslim, the mu'min, that's why the more knowledge you get, the more you can try to avoid the tricks of the shaitan. And he's very keen, if he can't get you to do shirk, which is the greatest sin, or kufr, he'll try to get you to do the haram, the great haram. If he can't, he'll get you to the smaller forbidden stuff. If he can't get you, then he'll try to keep you occupied with those things that are mubah, but it keeps you away from those things that are more beneficial from you. Right? And he keeps trying and trying and trying. And then, for example, you're going to do the good deeds, and you have pure intention, he's going to come and try to get you to be doubting your intention. Right? So don't let him trick you that way, but don't also forget to renew your intention, make it surely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ مِنْ أَعْظَمِ مُقُوِّيَاتِ الْقُلُوبِ امْتِلَاؤُهَا بِالنِّيَّةِ الصَّحِيحَةِ فَإِنَّ النِّيَّةَ الصَّحِيحَةَ تَحْمِلُ الْعَبْدِ عَلَى إِدْرَاكِ مَطْلُوبِهِ. He said, from the greatest things that you can strengthen the heart with is the purity of intention. And the more you purify your intention, the greater the chances are that you will achieve that which you are seeking. Right? If you do this solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah will give you upon your intention. وَلَوْ ضَعَفَتْ قُوَّةُ الْبَدَنِيَّةِ عَنْهُ وَكَمْ تَرَى مِمَّنْ صَحَّتْ نِيَّتُهُ ضَعِيفُ الْبَدْنِ خَائِرُ الْقَوْءِ الْبَدَنِيَّةِ لكن قلبه قوي ثابت في طلب مقصوده فهو حريص على استحفاظ ما رتبة من ورد يومه قرآنيا أو سنة. So he's saying basically strength of the heart can outweigh the strength of the body. You know, the hadith that we hear all the time, "Al-mu'minu qawi khayrun wa habbu ila Allahi min al-mu'min da'if." The strong believer is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the weak believer. First and foremost, it's an iman, right? That's why, like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he was very skinny in terms of the body, to the point where he can hold on to a tree branch and the wind will come in and blow him. That's how skinny he was, right? Even some Sahaba laughed at him because how skinny his legs were. And the Prophet said that his legs are more heavy in the sight of Allah than the mountain of Uhud, because of his ilm and his niyyah salihah, right? So the niyyah, the Imam is saying that with the purity of intention, it can outweigh the strength of the body. And here he's talking about an ilm, in knowledge. So you might see somebody, he reads so much, has library full of books, he memorized so much, but he doesn't reach the same level as this person who had pure intention, maybe not that many books, but he reached a great level of iman and knowledge, right? Because of the purity of intention, Allah, He lifted him above that other person. Because ilm, true ilm, like we said last week, is more to do from the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the physical requirements. Of course, as a talib, you try to take all the steps you can in the physical sense of studying and reviewing and memorizing and doing the work that the mind and the body need. But the more your niyyah is pure, the more your heart is pure, the more you will receive the knowledge and you will be in higher ranks. Right? Some of the great scholars I've met personally and sat with them, they didn't have that many books in their library, like subhanAllah. And they didn't review that many books. But their knowledge was so deep and so great. Shaykh ibn Baz, rahimahullah, used to only go through a couple of books each year. He'd go through one book and then repeat it again. The same couple of books in Aqeedah, same Tafsir ibn Kathir, and then Fath al-Bari of Sharh Sahih Muslim. He'd go through it and repeat it, go through it and repeat it. Years and years and years. Just a couple of books. But look how great in knowledge he was. Right?
Did you meet Sheikh Baz?
What's that?
Did you meet him?
Yeah, I studied a little bit with him. I translated for him, and he's the one who wrote my Tazkiyat al-Jami', alhamdulillah. But he was subhanAllah, blind, and he became blind at a young age, and he memorized many books of ahadith, and the Quran and fiqh, and he was very, very humble. Even though he was the mufti at the time of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but he was humble. He would meet anybody, he'd take you in, and he would take calls constantly. He slept very little, and he prayed much in the night, and he'd spend the whole day teaching and stuff like that. So he was very old, blind, kind of feeble, skinny, and I didn't see him except that he would either be teaching, or he was answering questions upon the phone, doing fatawa, or he was doing tasbih or qiraat al-Quran. I didn't see him leave those things, subhanAllah. And that's the true people of knowledge. When you reach a high level, you take the hubb al-dunya and the hubb al-shahawat out of your heart, and you fill it with the hubb al-ilm, hubb al-kitabillah wa sunnat rasulih sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's when you want to live with the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the sahaba, because we can't be with them physically, but maybe we can be with them spiritually in terms of understanding where they came from, with their words. That's how we can live with them now, in this time of fitna and tribulation, to be close to them and to take this knowledge dear to our hearts. So the main point, inshallah, to summarize, the 4 ways to purify your intention with the sake of knowledge is to first and foremost intend the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and lifting the ignorance from yourself. Secondly, to try to remove the ignorance from other people, from the khalq, to fill the world with goodness. Thirdly, to intend to protect the knowledge, to save it from being lost, to help the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And fourthly, to act upon the knowledge. We said that the zakat of ilm is amal, right? Purifying your intention, your actions is with purifying your knowledge is with acting upon it. So these are the 4 main components of ikhlas al-niyyah fi talab al-ilm, and inshallah we will continue next week, bi-idhnillah. there's any questions or suggestions or comments, تفضلوا. I want to put the last three on the spot that came in. That question. If you intend to do a good deed but you don't do it, what happens in terms of reward or no reward?
It counts as a reward.
You still get it?
All three say yes, reward?
Yeah.
Okay. If you intend to do a bad deed but you don't do it,
It counts as good.
huh?
It counts as good.
It counts as good? You sure?
Yeah, one.
One good deed.
Would it depend, Chef?
Yeah.
It would depend, right?
Well, it depends on.
For example, if I wanted to go to a party, and that was my intention from the morning, and the last second, the person that's supposed to give me the ride doesn't come. So I don't end up going to the party because of that ride not coming. That.
So what happens? You get punishment or rewarded or nothing or?
Nothing. Your intention was to go to the party.
Yeah. No.
So that would be a punishment. It would count as a sin.
What's the proof?
إنما الأعمال بالنيات.
Yeah.
Where's the amal though? In this case, is not
he didn't do the action. So what's the proof that?
the rest of the hadith.
No, the other hadith.
The rest of the hadith says فإن عمل, if he actually goes through and does the action, then it's written as one sayyah. I would venture to say that in that specific
It's the
situation.
same with the two people, right?
Oh, you already had the answer. The three that came late. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, okay. There's another hadith that says, as the levels of niyyah, that when you think about it, that first it's a thought, and then something that falls in your heart, and then the azm at the end.
That's the levels of niyyah and the explanation of this hadith and other hadith. But there's a clear hadith that shows what we're talking about. I'm sure you know it, inshallah. We just went over it, but
Like you were saying, isn't there a certain point where it goes from a thought, then you are planning for it, then you kind of go out to do it, whether good or bad?
yeah, so those are like the levels of niyyah. So that the thought that comes to your head, the first initial thought, we're not accountable for that. That's the whispering. When it goes into the heart and it becomes, like you said, azima, that you know, okay, that this thought moved into the heart and then it moved into the planning phase in action. So now he's saying, for example, the person, and we're assuming it's not a halal party, a non-halal party, he's intending to go to do something haram. And something dunyawi prevented him from doing that haram, whatever it is, right? So we're asking now, does he get punished for that, or does he just have a clean slate, nothing because he didn't do it, or we said he doesn't get rewarded for it?
Yes. So the hadith, I think, if you go back to the hadith, it says من هم بسيئة فلم يفعلها. So the explanation that I studied is that if he stops it out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he actually gets a reward for it, for stopping the bad action out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
If something prevents him from going there and he doesn't go, I would venture to say that he neither gets a hasana nor a sayyi'ah, because he didn't do the action, the wrong action, but at the same time, the reason he stopped wasn't out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the fear of Allah is not there, so he doesn't get a hasana, but the action itself didn't take place, so he doesn't get a sayyi'ah for something that he didn't do.
Okay.
Zeros out.
So you guys agree?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
No?
Also, Chef, isn't it like, for the fasting person, if he says to himself, he makes the intention, I'm going to go break my fast.
Yes.
That's it. And he goes to the fridge, and he opens the fridge, there's no food. And then he says, okay, I'm going to continue my fast. Doesn't that break the fast? Although he didn't eat nothing.
That's different though, because the intention for the fast is part of it's part of the fast. If someone gets up at Fajr and doesn't eat or drink anything until Maghrib, but he doesn't have the intention of fasting, he doesn't get rewarded for fasting that day. And at the same time, the person who intends to break the fast, the shart or the condition of niyyah for siyam is invalidated, and once one of the shurut is invalidated, the fast itself is also invalidated. So you can't compare apples and oranges in this case.
I mean, it's still apples with apples, because the hadith that we mentioned is al-qatilu wal-maqtul fi an-nar.
Yes.
So the killer and the one that was killed are in the hellfire, the Prophet ﷺ said. And we said why? The Sahaba asked why. He said because we know why the qatil is in the hellfire, the killer, the murderer, he's in hellfire because he killed another person. Not about al-maqtul, like what's happened to the one that was killed? Why is he in the hellfire?
Because he was keen.
حريص على قتل أخيه.
He was keen to kill him. But
so this is what the ulama use as saying the intention of a person to do evil may actually result in that person getting a sin for that intention.
can we generalize
Because-
things like that? The hadith,
I mean, this
because
is
it's very specific. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say in general that if you're keen on doing something, then you get the reward or the punishment based on your intention.
Yeah.
He says
Well, I mean,
it's
all
a very
acts-
specific. It's a very specific act, and he talks about killing because killing is a huge thing.
Yeah, but
And
he
so
said,
and you can't. It's just like you can't like compare siyam and salah in terms of ahkam or qiyam. The qiyas is completely different.
no, there are
You can't generalize, can you?
no, there are similarities in ibadah in terms of, for example, like the niyyah in general. You know, you have the niyyah distinguishes the ibadat, but asl niyyah is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that niyyah changes, then the ibadat is fasid no matter what the ibadah is. So this is just one of the proofs that scholars use to determine that the niyyah can have an effect upon the reward. If you stop for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can get rewarded for it, right? If you stop solely for the sake of something dunyawi, but as soon as you had the opportunity to do it, you will still do it, then you'll be punished accordingly.
But isn't there an exception in Surah Al-Hajj? وَمَنْ يُرِدْ فِيهِ بِإِلْحَادٍ بِظُلْمٍ نُذِقْهُ مِنْ عَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Isn't that an exception? So what we had learned is the rule is if you intend to do something bad and you don't do it, you're not punished for it because you didn't do it.
If you don't do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not punished for it. You get rewarded for it. If you do it, if your niyyah is like changed to that you just stop doing it, you're not intending to do it anymore, not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that might fall into what you're talking about in terms of he might not get punished for it. He's not getting rewarded for it because he didn't leave it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he left it and says he's not going to try to do it anymore. But the one who left it just because he's not able to do it, but if he had a chance he would do it, this is what the scholars say falls under this hadith that we mentioned, that he will be punished according to his niyyah. You know, for example, a person, like he said, if you intend to break your fast, even though you didn't eat anything physically, your fast is broken because of that intention. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. It's in general, all ahadith are by intention. All actions are by intention. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. So whatever he intends, he will nawa, he will achieve what he's intended. Right? So if a person, for example, intended evil for the Muslims, right, and his whole plot and planning, he's trying to do something to harm the Muslims, but he's still not able to do it just because of the circumstances, he still will get punished for that.
Yeah, that clarifies it. Thank
But
you.
when you say you stop yourself for the sake of Allah, you get rewarded.
Yeah, if you stop for the sake of Allah, you get rewarded. It changes into hasana.
And when does it even out?
So if, for example, you intended to do something wrong, but you stopped and you changed your mind, like I'm not going to do it anymore, but you didn't really do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you just did it because I don't want to do it. Like, for example, in that sense, it might be, like he was saying, you might not necessarily get the wizr, but you're not going to get the ajr. Yeah. But if you intend solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like the man, he killed 99 people and he made the hijrah, he intended to do good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave all his sins and put him to the people of Jannah because his intention was that good. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he rewards upon the intention for his mercy. And Allah knows best.
The hadith mentions one sayyah. How do you, I know it might be a very stupid question, but how do you know what one sayyah means? Like, so if someone intends to do like a major sin, and then he stops out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that the same, does he get the same reward as someone who intends to do a very minor sin and then stops? So is it according to the magnitude of, or it might be, it might be a very stupid question, but
No, it's not. It's just, but it goes back to the purity of intention. So we said, even in doing good deeds, it could be something that's so small, like you gave $1, but you were so sincere for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's multiplied millions and millions of times over when you go to Jannah. And then another person, he gave $1 million, but his niyyah was so weak and pure, it might not even equal $1 in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that small deed that a person does, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can be made so great in Allah's sight. And likewise, Allah, if he really feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he stopped himself from doing for the sake of a major sin, and he really feared Allah in his heart, he was sick for what he was about to do, and it inspired him to do tawbah, maybe he'll have a far greater reward than somebody that just I'll leave it, I don't feel like doing it anymore or something like that. So that's why the niyyah is such a great bab, and there's so many ahkam and principles of fiqh built upon the intention, so that's why we've taken from this chapter, inshallah, that we should always strive and review our niyyahs to make sure that we're doing it for the sake of Allah. And the sincere ones, the true sincere ones, they're the ones that fear riyah, and they always check themselves, and they're constantly trying to perfect their niyyah for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you really if you do this act solely for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts this act. إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Some scholars say that I wish if I knew Allah accepted one act from me, I'd die just right then and there, because Allah says this ayah. That's how keen they were for their intention to be pure in their action for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So if I were to do something and I say, no, I'm not going to do it, Allah's not going to be pleased with me, is that 1 ajr or 10? Or how many?
That's what we're just saying. Allah knows best. Allah knows how much.
No, because I think I heard something that
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is so merciful and so vast and so generous that
if we take the letter of the hadith, because that would be a hasana. The other one is
hasana. He has 1 ajr. It says literally, it says 1 hasana.
But I heard something. Maybe I'm confused that there's something that is equivalent to 10.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's
من
not
هم
the Quran.
بحسنة فلم يعملها فله
I'm confusing.
right?
If you do the action,
And
then it all
it's 10
multiplies.
times to 700 times to count those times. Allah yudha'af for me yasha. Allah, He will increase as He
You get
will.
reward, you get reward. Allah knows how much. Whatever.
I mean, we said, for example, the prostitute, she gave a drink to the
The
dog, and she got Jannah for that one act.
Yeah.
So look at the sincerity in her heart, Yes. sir.
So quick question. So I just want to divert the topic. So you said that one point that we need to seek the knowledge for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
So if you seek a knowledge for worldly life, like suppose if you learn a technology or for our job or something, for our life,
Yeah.
for here, so it's going to be benefiting after hereafter.
If you make your niyyah pure, say you're seeking, this is what we're talking about now, of course, is Islamic knowledge, yani ilm shar'i, that deals with Allah and the Messenger and the deen of Islam. This is the rewards and the benefits and the blessings of this type of knowledge that we're talking about. The ilm dunyawi, the worldly knowledge, that can fall into several categories. It can be mubah, it can be fard kifaya, and it can be makruh, and it can be actually haram as well, right? So it can be, for example, mubah, it's not something prohibited to learn, but it's not really something that's going to benefit the ummah, for example. It's just something knowledge that you want to increase yourself in. It's mubah. It could be fard kifaya. For example, we need a certain amount of doctors or engineers or technicians, for example, to maintain the Muslim ummah. So if there's not enough, it becomes fard upon certain people until they have enough numbers to fill that category, right? And then fard aini also is like the deen knowledge, that the basics of your deen, every Muslim should know. How to offer salat, how to pay the zakat, how to make hajj, these type of knowledges, every Muslim should know. That's fard aini. Makruh, some type of knowledge that might maybe bring more harm than good. That it's just like a waste of time. There's no benefit, and it might make it be like cause of distraction for other people that takes them away from more beneficial things. And then haram, like learning sahar, or how to divide between the husband and the wife, or to cause people illness from the jinn, or to these type of things, that becomes haram, or even kufr, or what I'm saying. So these are all the types. But for dunya, for example, so you say you knew your intention to say, I'm learning this knowledge from the dunya to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and help the Muslim ummah. And that way you'll be rewarded for it. So you can turn, like the scholars say, never make your ibadat into adat, but make your adat into ibadat. So do not make your worship into a form of like something that's a habit, like something you just do, you're so used to it, you don't really take it for, you take it for granted now, you don't really care about salah as you should. So never do that. But make your habits into ibadat. How do you do that? By intention. Like the Prophet ﷺ said, فِي بُضَعِ أَحَدِكُمْ صَدَقَةً. In the relationship with your wife, if you do in halal, you get rewarded for it, ajr. if you're taking engineering degree, for example, or something like that, and you have intention that I want to make money for myself so I can support my family and give sadaqah and zakat and help the Muslim ummah, maybe make an invention that will help others, alleviate the poverty, or something like that, Allah will reward you for that intention. So it's always like you can make simple deeds into great acts of worship just by your niyyah, doing it for the sake of Allah. Allah knows best. It's time for Maghrib, so Jazakumullah khairan. Coming inshallah, shall we see you all next week. Allah.